First of all, we need to understand that widening the circle of concern is about a lot of things. It's about paying attention to who we include and who we exclude. It's about holding up a mirror and taking a good hard look at ourselves and deciding if that's who we really want to be. It's about reminding ourselves of what our ideals are and kind of self checking ourselves to see if we're living up to those ideals. In RE, we used the Widening the Circle report as a springboard, and it pushed us into hard discussions. We had to ask ourselves, so, all right, we're engaging in faith formation with our youth and children. What are we including? What are we leaving out? And who are we affecting when we make those decisions? And so, when we're taking a look at what we're offering our youth and children in terms of their faith formation, we had to ask ourselves, is the curriculum we're using doing what we need it to do? Is it meeting the youth and children where they are, and is it responsive to their needs? In some cases it was, and in other cases it wasn't. And you've seen some changes in the RE program over the last few years because of the answers that we came to. One of the first things we did was take a look at the Youth and Child Library. These are books that are used in the classrooms but are also available for youth and children to check out. And we found that we didn't have as wide a diversity of texts on our shelves as we wanted to. We wanted to be more inclusive, so we deliberately sought out texts that expanded the circle of people that we had represented on our shelves, and we're pretty happy with the result. Ironically, it was COVID that pushed us to explore the diversity that we had in our RE volunteer pool. We had some folks step back during COVID, and as we planned to return to in person, we looked at our program and asked ourselves, well, what do we look like as a volunteer pool? We were largely white, female, middle aged, cisgendered, and able bodied. We realize that this does not reflect either our congregation nor our community, and so we engaged in some both and thinking. We certainly wanted to preserve the volunteers we did have, but we did not want to discourage anyone from volunteering because they didn't look like the volunteers we currently had. So we widened the circle and we deliberately invited folks who didn't look like a typical RE volunteer. As a result, we ended up with more men teaching, with more people who are LGBTQ, more people who are diversely abled, and more people who did not stay within the confines of middle age. COVID also forced us to ask if the program as a whole was meeting the needs of our youth and children, especially as we came back for the first time to in person after COVID. Our youth and children came back with varying degrees of trauma, as did our adults. Accordingly, we decided that simply teaching content wasn't going to be enough. Well, honestly, is it ever if you're a Unitarian Universalist? We also needed to teach habits and tools that would enable our youth and children to rebuild or maybe even initially forge connections that they had been missing over the last year. And so every lesson that we teach has a social emotional learning component attached to it so that youth actually get the skills and capacities they need to re engage with others. We've also begun experimenting with a restorative justice approach to conflict between and among youth. This is an approach that doesn't seek to blame so much as it seeks to resolve the harm and reunite the community once there has been a conflict between two people. If you'd like to know more about this, please feel free to stop by and ask me. I'd be delighted to tell you about it. So that's how the Widening the Circle report has affected us here in RE. It's kind of a boots on the ground approach, and we've really appreciated the difference that it's made in our ability to serve our youth.